if you're searching something for the family or with a lot of space, 6 or 7-seater, but not necessarily MPV, van, but rather SUV, then it might also be electric. Well, the offer is not that large, but you can get the Hyundai Ioniq 9, which we will drive today. It's a sister model to the Kia EV9, which you maybe have already seen on our channel. Today we are driving this big fella here for you today and see how good is it actually and how much space, how much flexibility is there on the interior. I'm Thomas, this is Autogefühl in 4K, full screen, full length. Let's go. Huge, impressive front, but all the way closed. Of course, for better efficiency. Here the daytime running light at the side, and when you turn the indicators, it looks really funny in this pixel design, so to speak. Also picked the white vehicle here for you today, also dressed accordingly. Of course, different colors are available, but they don't offer so much screaming out colors, more subtle colors, but that's what people buy. The length here, 5 meters and 6 or 199 inches. So for European taste, really full-size SUV. 19.2 maximum 21-inch wheels. These here are in between 20-inch in the wheel style. Yeah, it might be a good compromise between comfort and the looks. The door handles are flush or come out. At the moment they're already out because the car is open. We'll soon also go in depth on that. You can get rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive versions. This is here the base rear-wheel drive version because I also want to make a video for the more family accessible version. In this case then here, 9.4 seconds in the acceleration figure, 0 to 1 kilometers an hour. You could get down to 5.2 with the all-wheel drive version. There are 2 all-wheel drive versions, one slower, one the quicker one, the performance version, if you want that a little bit faster. Top speed 200 kilometers an hour or 125 miles an hour. So also suitable for the German Autobahn. And here, you maybe know it from the Hyundai Staria, from their real MPV. It's like this light design here in the rear and also here then straight vertical. The indicators also appear there. And on the top part would then be the braking indicator, the other one. So it's a very modern design indeed. It kind of conveys, hey, I am electric. Do you think that's a good decision? Tell me in the comments. And you can see, like from the base dimensions, is really square but rounded, you know, in these areas, so it looks like a squircle, so to speak. And then charging really quick with a Hyundai 800 volt technology, 24 minutes from 10 to 80% state of charge. Here the charging flap is electric, passenger side in the rear. There we go. So it's really quick 800 volt charging, and that's good. Of the 110 kilowatt hour battery, that's the gross figure though. So Hyundai usually does not release the net figures. And usually they use around 5% buffer. So then I would assume some 105 kilowatt hours net. And we'll also check out on the German Autobahn for you here today how much range we can score with that one. Now about the Frunk. You have a button on the inside to unlock it. Let's take a look. Yeah, it does have a Frunk, and it's actually quite funny because here there's this top cover, but it goes even deeper because you can lift this one. It's a very nice thing. You can also take it out completely. And then, for example, here for the charging cable box, or I mean, there could even be some luggage in there, or maybe a backpack or something like that. Funny, by the way, that for emergency reasons or safety reasons, there's even a manual unlock from the inside here. Yeah, should anyone get trapped in the Frunk? I'm not sure for whom this should count, but yeah, that's still official safety regulations, you know, for mafia and so on. Now to the trunk, where here is the small button to press. 910 liters when the third row is down actually, and it's really interesting. Here, third row is up, still fits behind it. And here the length, this is 1.40 meters between the wheel arches, but here it's more like 120, 125 in meters, and the normal length about 60 centimeters, and here about 75 centimeters. So I don't have my inch stick here today on the other side, on the same side. Gotta calculate that. And now here, interesting is here the head restraint. You can have them up and they fold down automatically soon, but you have to be mindful that the second row is not too far back, because otherwise the head restraints will hit the second row. So here on the side I have buttons, and these are electric then for the third row. Look at that. And now we have to hope that the head restraints fold early enough. Oh, yeah, there we go. See, it's close. So when this one here would be a little bit more back, the head restraints do hit these and still apply pressure electrically. And that's not good for the car, I think. And then next two buttons here, this is now a manual unlock. Watch that. There we go, bang. But it goes quite quickly then. And now the total length here is not only 2 meters or like 78 inches, but even more, like 2 meters 20. And that is really impressive. Look at this loading setup. And towards the interior here, this key fob could be something else, a different device for a different purpose, if you know what I mean. And when I open the vehicle here, the door handles come towards me, and then you have the manual feedback. That's actually quite cool, and door closing sound, quite solid, like that. Inside of the doors, have here some structure on top, also soft, and then here also soft, although it's structured like this. That's a really cool idea indeed. Also normal controls here for the windows and for the side mirror control and so on, memory seating, massage and so on. Just hardback here in the lower part. And then steering wheel, real buttons at the steering wheel. We love that here for the cruise control, for example, on the left side. Right side you have a volume jog, for example, so that's actually pretty cool. So more details to the infotainment and so on. Seats, you would have a base fabric seat. We filmed that for you as well. It's available in all countries. And then there's a split in the Northern American market. You get HTex, that's a high-grade leatherette. Looks and feels the same, also with cooling available. In Europe, they strangely go for animal skin shears, not completely, but a shear, which is not necessary with the modern high-tech materials anymore. So then in Europe I would get the fabric seat version actually. And then here you have a lot of space already in front. There's this comfort entry function that the steering wheel also goes up. The steering wheel is huge actually, so this conveys this cruiser feeling. And here with 189 6x2, there's still some headroom left. And yeah, you get this typical king of the road position here in an electric SUV in this case. Now to the cockpit overview. Here, look at that. It's actually quite clean design, a little bit towards the driver with this curved design, 2x 12.3 inch screens, left and right. On the right side here I have this nice matte decor element, looks cool, also with the ambient lighting integration. Then we have a glove box, which is kind of tiny, but the mechanism here is very interesting, gotta say that. Even floor, and we have a huge middle console here. Cup holders are adaptive. Inductive charging pad is not cooled though. Drive mode selector here with a physical switch. I really like that. And then it's very interesting here, large armrest, could be a little bit softer for the elbow though, but you can open it from the rear, I can soon show that, but also from the front. And then you have massive amounts of space here. This is split. Yeah, this is collecting a lot of fingerprints and stuff, this area here. And then we still have physical dials for the climate. There we go. Just in the screen and for the vent strength or for the fan speed, and also for the volume knob is manual. The only thing is you maybe hear that already on camera, and I'm not sure if it's like a Northern American thing. Even on the minimum stage, the fan speed is very, very loud. And I once heard from a product developer that on a Northern American market, the customers want to have the fan speed loud so they know, the AC is working. Whereas, for example, on the European market, they want it really silent, not to be disturbed. So not sure if they really know that it's correct. So maybe you just give some feedback in the comments if that is something that you would expect or not. For me personally, I would rather have it silent, and when I want to have it stronger or louder, I would just, put it up a little bit more. And driver's perspective here, start and stop for the vehicle. And this is also the switch gear here, drive, reverse and park. And then you can see there's also a little bit animation here. Digital instruments, clear to read, and you can also change the views a little bit here in the middle. Then the main infotainment unit. It's nothing special, but I think it's quick enough. Most of the time you would use the smartphone projection anyway, and not the main infotainment unit. The car internal GPS, yeah, this is rather last decade, honestly. So that is where then your smartphone connection rather comes into play. And you also have some storage here in the lower part. The lower part, you can also open more storage in there. It's very interesting. USB-C charging, really quick, 100 watt output everywhere. First, second and third row. And here some plus and minus basically here designed for the pedals. Now to the rear seats, super exciting. First of all, the doors here. It's a really large sun cover here. That is pretty cool in design. It really covers all of the window. Also here, some soft touch. Even here, this area maybe looks hard, but it's really a soft touch leatherette. So that's a cool build quality. I love that. Cup holders here on the inside, already large, thinking especially on the Northern American market. Also in the lower part, this one is harder material rather. And then you have a lot of space here. So first of all, when the second row is all the way back, and then the legroom to the front seat, so ample of legroom. You can move around easily, flat bottom. And then also here, the headroom, it's really sufficient. Also with one A962, you see here at the moment there's a cover for the sunroof. You can, however, activate here the, there we go, this is the full cover then here for the panoramic roof. And you can even still open this one. So we rarely see that with EVs nowadays. There's this real opening here for the sunroof, but of course you can also keep it closed. In this case, it's interesting that it also comes together with the shade when you really, push it all the way through. So what you have to do here is you have to, there we go. Yeah, you have to be very gentle because there's like a one press, a small press or a hard press, depending on what you want to move together or if you want to move it separately. And then here you can put the seats here forward or backward. It works very easily. What we can also do is try out to move it like this and see how much space you have then in the rear. And now, first of all, here, some cup holders here in this, they are also adaptive. You can hear that. And you can also fold them back again, and it's really comfortable here, super spacious in the rear. That's where this car is really shining. And you can also adjust here the back part, so you can make it more like this, almost sleeping position, or like this. There would also be a 6-seater captain's seat option available in EU market, only in the higher trim, thirdly. I think it's similar in the US. Advantage is you can go through the middle, you have more luxurious outside seats. There's a swivel option that you can turn it around 180 degrees. And there's also a package where it becomes even more a luxury captain seats with like a calf rest and so on. So these options are there. But this one here, the 7-seater, of course, the family version, ISOFIX outside on these seats each. And even more interesting, so this bench here, you could also access the third row. But here you have a button on top here. Either press this one, or the button is also in the lower part. And on this side, it's even more practical because when I press this one, look at that, what happens? There we go. It goes up and forward. I can push it a little bit more. And that's actually pretty cool because here the bench is only possible, it goes forward, but not really up like this. And now the question is, how do I fit there in the third row? And I leave it like this to see if it's also tall adult proof. First of all, are there ISOFIX? Yes, finally someone thought of that, look at that here. ISOFIX on the rears, like on the third row. So then you have easily 4 ISOFIX points. Let me check the driver's seat, co-driver's seat. No, there we don't have one, but 4 then in the back. What an easy entry to the third row. And then when the second row is in the front, yeah, you see, I could more or less get in here legroom wise. Headroom is actually no problem. It's nothing for tall adults here in the rear, but still a lot of space. USB-C chargers and so on. You can even here electrically adjust the back part of the third seating row. That is pretty cool, right? So fancy option for that. You also have a own ventilation here. So yeah, you are very flexible with this one here. That's actually very, very cool. And you can also help yourself getting out because the button on the lower part, but also in the top part, this is why they put it on top part. You can also press it and then see here, you can also get out yourself. But this is the main difference. That's why from the passenger side, it's always better to get in because there you see the difference. Easier entry here than here. And cool luxury feature, even for the rear seats, cooling or heating available for the rear seats if you are in this, like in a higher spec and so on. So, and then here, own climate unit. Interesting is also this lower area here. This is a big storage and it's really connected to the top one here. So you can open it also from this side. And there you can see it's all one unit. So if you put it this way out, The kids will love that when they can play some like Monster Hand games or something, or like that you can reach through from here. Yeah, that's a very interesting thing they did here with that rear storage, isn't it? There we can see again from both sides to be opened. Let's start driving the Ioniq 9 and start with recuperation, because we go down this hill, left shifting pedal, I can go to the I pedal, and then I have full one pedal driving, and here I have massive recuperation. Even this downhill here is, I think even here, even here the car comes to the full stop. You can see it on the camera here, how steep it is actually. That's interesting. So full one pedal driving, and then you can also go to lower levels. The I pedal, however, is not a setting that would be saved. So when you restart the vehicle, maximum it starts at level 3, and then you have to activate the I pedal for yourself again. Other than that, you can also go to level 0 here with pressing the right pedal, and then you just do the recuperation with your braking pedal. That will also be possible, so you can, or something in between here, for example, go to level 2, do the brake when you go like downhill for a longer period of time or something. A big question mark is, of course, when the vehicle is large, is it still agile and easy to drive? Well, steering wise, yes, definitely. You also hear the fan speed maybe a little bit, because, as I said, even the first fan speed level is quite loud already. So the steering doesn't have a dead zone area. It's very light though, and it's changed from the driving mode. See, it's sport mode, also gets here like some red dots. Not sure if they're flickering on camera now, but in the sport mode, does the steering change much? Yeah, it's a little bit more resistance then, so that's actually quite cool then in this case. You can also go to the eco mode, then the throttle input would be reduced a little bit more, or just leave it in the normal mode. However, we can also show you some acceleration from the sport mode. And let's also see if I have fun in the rear wheel drive. We can do some 0 to 60 kilometers an hour here. Let's go. In the corner. That's it. That was 0 to 60. Nice. I mean, totally sufficient. From the get-go, the EVs are always really quick. And just think about it. I mean, this is a huge vehicle, a lot of weight. And rear wheel drive, of course, out of the corners is fun. And let's say for all the city situations, this rear wheel drive model is also enough. We're soon going to check out if it's also enough from the like Autobahn acceleration. Here, by the way, if I press and hold the mute button or the volume button here, the EU speed limit thing is deactivated. That's really good to know, because it's an easy way to deactivate it, because by law it has to be activated each time again, and for all EU countries, then you can easily deactivate it, that it doesn't beep all the time and so on. Starting with some city driving before we get to the German Autobahn. So it is easier to drive than you might think. If you're not used to drive a large vehicle, it is easy to maneuver because the steering is light, and this EV drivetrain gives you some ease to the drive basically. So, and it is also a very smooth experience, also quite silent. Here the windows also have a dual insulation. You can feel that actually. So I'm looking forward to how that performs then on the German Autobahn very soon. Suspension, told you earlier, we have 20-inch wheels here. Between 19 and 21 would be possible. And there is just this one suspension here in this vehicle, and so far in the city does it quite well. It's not set too soft, but also not too stiff. They've tried to find a good compromise. And once again, we try to test out soon on the Autobahn. When there are some potholes, you still feel that. If you would seek the maximum comfort, then you would go for the 19-inch wheels. Then you have some more dampening from that tire left. But so far, see here also typical narrow city situations here, at least in Germany, that you have to wait for another car to pass and so on. But it does a good job here. Yeah, you feel from the rear axle sometimes when there are some bumps in the road, then it can get a little bit rough. You know, that's maybe the thing. But I'm also looking forward to how it looks like on the motorway. Oh, it's like BMW 7 Series always looks cool with the illuminated front kit. Yeah, at least I think it looks cool actually. But although we're quite wide, we still fit in these narrow roads here. And one main thing to me is also, yes, it's large, It's an SUV, it's electric, but it's still fun to drive, actually, at least here in the city. And now we're going to compare how it will behave on the German Autobahn. Now towards the German Autobahn, first of all, assistance systems. Quickly here, I set the cruise control and also the active steering assist, keeping me in the lane. There are maybe a few more corrections than with other more sophisticated systems you can see here. So it could be a little bit smoother. That's overall fine. As I said, there's probably worse, but there's also better. As for the assistance systems, what's pretty cool is that you don't only have the blind spot monitor as a red triangle here, but you also have here this camera that appears in the digital instruments, and then you have an additional blind spot monitor while doing that. Dual installation of the windows front and rear, and that makes it here at 100 kilometers an hour, 60 miles an hour, very silent. So, and this is a typical motorway speed, and it's really, really nice as for that. The suspension is fine when there are waves in the road, just when there are really bumps. I felt that also on the countryside road. Then the suspension can get really rough, especially from the rear axle, I felt. So that is maybe, yeah, this roughness at these bumps. And so this may be like one thing where this vehicle is not that good. Now we switch to motorways, see about the agility there. The car does not shake up much. So that's actually quite cool. And as I said earlier, it is actually fun, although it's a large and heavy SUV, and maybe it's also the rear-wheel drive, you know? Yeah, it's maybe not the best acceleration at high speeds and so on, but still, it feels pretty cool. So yeah, wouldn't have expected so much driving fun here in this really large SUV, also when you have here some S combinations on the motorway and so on. So yeah, that's actually pretty decent in that respect. You know, on the motorway again, dual blind spot monitor, so to speak. But also, since we have the classic building style of the vehicle, you also have a good overview, even without all the helper system, even to the normal back mirror. The windshield, the window in the back is also really upright, and so on. You know, I have deactivated this speed chime thing. However, what you still feel is, or hear, when the speed limit is changing, or when you get closer here and there, there's still a lot of sounds going on. Some of them you can also deactivate, but then you have to go deeper into the menu. The one shortcut here is then indeed for that. You can, however, also put a shortcut here on the favorite button, and then you get to the all of the assistance systems where you can deactivate some more of them even quicker. And is there still acceleration above 100? Let's go. 120, 130, 140. Yeah, not 150, so not explosive. There the all-wheel drive, of course, would help, but still very silent here at higher speeds at 140 kilometers an hour. Yeah, so like 80, 90 miles an hour. Pretty cool. So super silent, although it's this large SUV. That is astonishing indeed. And when the road is smooth, then also the suspension is smooth. So that's actually very, very cool. And yeah, with the all-wheel drive version, you would have more performance, but this is already very decent here. Very silent at high speeds. And as for our efficiency or consumption test, so in the city, you can drive close to the driving cycle, the official range figures. However, as soon as you go to the motorway, it's still a large vehicle, and it pushes against the wind and so on. And then it speeds between 100 and 130 kilometers an hour. So yeah, 70, 80 miles an hour. It goes then to like 24 kilowatt hours on 100 kilometers. That's 2.5 miles per kilowatt hour. And if we then deduct a little bit of buffer from a battery, calculate with 105 kilowatt hours net, it would mean it would run here at the motorway speed like 440 kilometers or 270 miles. And that's the thing, when you have high-speed motorway, this won't be the super range car for you. At least it charges quickly again. That's the thing. For the city, for the family, it's great. For the motorway, there will be soon better, more efficient premium SUVs coming up. However, here, of course, always the thing that you just have so much flexibility with these seats and with this vast cargo area. However, here, when we have the total mix of our drive today with city driving and countryside, it's more 20 kilowatt hours and 100 kilometers. So some 3 miles per kilowatt hour. So when you don't drive too fast on the motorway, have more city share or countryside share, it's more like 525 kilometers of real range or like 330 miles. Pricing on the Northern American market, you move between $60,000 to $80,000. European market here, Germany for example, you move around 70 to 90,000 euros if you really go high spec. I think it rather makes more sense if you stay a little bit more low spec, because otherwise it's just getting too expensive, and also the leasing rate and so on. So this one rather rear drive, more efficient, also with the 7 seats that you're really flexible. I think this one makes more sense with this vehicle here. But of course overall, yeah, it is a quite expensive one. And now we have more reviews for you from electric SUVs. Tune in.